Hello, traveller. Tonight's story might seem dull at first. It's just about bells, ropes and dust. But as you'll discover, the life of a medieval bell ringer was far from peaceful, and maybe not the bedtime job you'd hope for. Between haunted towers, aching limbs and bells that told the town when to eat, pray, riot or weep, there's more drama here than meets the ear. Let's just say, you wouldn't want this job if you enjoyed sleeping in. Before drifting off to sleep, if these gentle history tales bring you peace, feel free to support the channel with a like and subscribe. Tell me, have you ever visited a bell tower or imagined what it would be like to sleep beneath one? Now switch off the lights and let's begin tonight's journey. You're standing at the foot of a stone tower just before dawn. The sky hasn't quite decided if it's night or morning. It's hanging there, hesitant as if the sun's pulling its boots on somewhere out of sight. The air smells faintly of wet lichen and yesterday's ashes. Cold clings to your sleeves, but it's not cruel, just expectant. The tower rises above you like a forgotten thought, square and grey, its tiny arched windows blinking out at a world that has mostly forgotten to look up. But you look up, because today, or is it tonight still, you're not a visitor. You're the bell ringer. You don't quite remember how you got here. There was an old man, wasn't there, with crooked fingers and a rope burn as thick as a worm around his palm. He'd smiled, handed you a heavy key and said only, "She's yours now." The door creaks open with a push. Inside, chillstone darkness and the scent of old rope and old sweat. You hesitate at the threshold, half expecting a rat to welcome you, but no, it's silence that meets you, deep and yawning. The stairs spiral upward in tight loops, barely wide enough for your shoulders. You begin the climb. Each footstep is a gentle protest. Your boot scuffs the stone sides. Your breath puffs like little ghosts brushing the cobwebs that hang like forgotten veils. It's a slow ascent, not because it's long, but because the air itself seems thick with waiting. At the first landing, you pause beside a narrow slit of a window. Below, the village sleeps. Thatched roofs rise like softened loaves of bread. Chickens rustle in coops. Somewhere, a dog coughs in its sleep. You keep climbing. Halfway up, a pigeon flutters past your ear and you nearly tumble. Your heart flaps harder than its wings. You cling to the wall and laugh the kind of laugh people make after slipping on ice and pretending they meant to. At last, you reach a door with iron hinges and a wooden latch smooth shiny by centuries of similar hesitations. You push it open. This is the bell chamber. It smells like iron and dust and something else, something tangy and ghost-like. It's not blood though, it's close. It's a metallic memory. You wrinkle your nose. Above you the bell waits. It is vast and beautiful in a grim way, like a whale skeleton made of bronze. Its surface is greened with age, etched with Latin no one reads anymore. A face, perhaps Mary, stares down from the side. Her eyes seem to follow you. Below the bell, the floor is warped wood, slightly concave like a smile. There's a low bench, a brazier filled with cold ash, a small pile of frayed gloves, and the rope is your task. It hangs like a patient snake coiled at the base. You pick it up. It's rough, like old bread crust, and smells faintly of palm oil and prayer. You don't ring it yet. Instead, you sit. Let the world quiet. You think of what this job means. A bell ringer is not a priest, nor a monk, nor even a servant. You're somewhere between function and myth. You are the first and last sound the village hears each day. The voice of the building, the timekeeper, the dream breaker. And all that begins with this rope. You stare at your fingers. They're not calloused, not yet, but they will be. And as light finally spills across the floor in hesitant gold, and the rooftops blink themselves awake, you rise. Take the rope in both hands, and wait for the signal. You don't hear the signal so much as feel it. A soft toll from a neighbouring chapel, distant, warm and low, like someone humming into a mug of tea. That's your cue. Not a command, not a shout. Just a sound that nudges your ribs gently, like a sleepy cat wanting to be fed. You brace yourself. 1 foot forward, 1 back. Hands spaced wide. Rope in both. You inhale deeply. The smell of aged hemp and old soot fills your lungs and pull. The bell resists. For a moment it feels like dragging a cathedral by its collar. But then with a groan of ancient hinges and a soft whoosh of air, displace the great bell shifts. Swings. It's a strange thing ringing a bell. It's not just tugging. It's not yanking. It's not brute strength. It's rhythm. It's patience. Like pushing a friend on a swing, you need to feel when to pull, when to pause. You must let the bell lead sometimes, or it'll throw you across the floor like a rag doll. The first full toll explodes. It fills the room, fills your chest, fills your teeth. You feel it in your soles, in your stomach. Not pain vibration, like thunder that forgot to leave the sky. You keep pulling. The bell sings again, and again. The village below stirs. You imagine people grumbling into pillows. Chickens clucking their disapproval. A baker nodding, "Ah yes, time to knead." Time itself bends a little under your rope-bound fingers. But it's not glamorous work. You begin to sweat, even in the morning chill. Your hands ache, your shoulders complain. The rope rubs in places you didn't know had nerve endings. And still, the bell demands more. With each pull, your body adjusts. Knees bent, arms loose but firm. It becomes a kind of dance. Inelegant, yes, but hypnotic. Somewhere between the 5th and 6th ring, your thoughts start to wander. You wonder what kind of person first decided bells needed to be this big. Was it ego? Was it faith? A man standing in a field shouting, "This will terrify the devil and half the cows." And yet it worked. The bell's voice echoes over the hills. You imagine it reaching travellers, shepherds, even other towers in far-off towns. A bronze conversation passed from spire to spire. You pause mid-ring to catch your breath. And in that moment, the bell swings back toward you slightly ahead of rhythm. You jump narrowly, dodging the heavy rope as it lunges for your face. That's when you realize this job has rules. Not written rules, not posted on a door, but unwritten ones, whispered into blisters and bruises. Rule 1. The bell always leads. You just follow beautifully. You pull again, this time with respect. Outside, the sky lightens. Your arms begin to remember what your brain forgets: the pace, the weight, the pause between beats. You begin to move with the bell, not against it. It's oddly calming, meditative even, like breathing. Loud, clanging, holy breathing. You realize something. Then the bell isn't just noise, it's punctuation. It marks the difference between dreaming and waking, between the private world of night and the shared rhythm of day. Without it, mornings would bleed endlessly into nothing. Would we feel as alive? You wonder if no one ever rang the bell. Would we know when to begin again? You let that thought linger, even as the rope stings your palms. Eventually the sound begins to fade, not because you've stopped, but because it's done. The bell, now satisfied, swings more gently, its voice mellowing like an old singer, easing into their final chorus. You let the rope slide through your fingers, slowing it with care. Silence returns. Not absolute silence. There's always windbirds, the creak of the wooden frame, but a kind of silence that follows purpose. Like a bow after a play. You sit on the floor, breathing hard, rope coiled beside you. And slowly, the tower breathes with you. Its stones warm a little. The cold no longer bites. Dust dances in the shaft of sunlight, breaking through a crack. You touch your forehead. It's damp. Your arms feel like porridge. But somewhere deep in your chest, beneath the ache and sweat, is a small seed of pride. Not grand, not glowing, just quiet. You did it. The bell rang, and the day, for better or worse, has begun. The stairs groan beneath you as you climb the final steps toward what you've been told is your room. It's not really a room. More of a hollow tucked into the side of the tower just above the bell chamber. The door is crooked. The hinges creak like arthritic knees. When you push it open, the smell meets you first wood mildew and something faintly sweet like old apples left near a window too long. Inside you find a mattress. Calling it a mattress is generous. It's a sack of something lumpy laid across two planks. Straw perhaps, or oats, or centuries of forgotten dreams. A single blanket, scratchy as a bad memory, lies folded at the foot. You sit down. It wheezes in protest. This is where bell ringers lived, slept, waited. There's no fire, no bath, no candle, unless you brought one yourself. Just a shelf with a wooden bowl and cup and a small hole in the wall for light, or air, or both. You press your palms into your thighs and feel the rhythm of the morning's ring still throbbing through your limbs. The ache in your shoulders is beginning to blossom. Not pain exactly, but the kind of weariness that settles into your bones like guests who don't intend to leave. On the floor beside the mattress lies a pair of gloves. One has a hole in the thumb. The other has a name stitched in faded thread, Tom. You wonder who Tom was. You wonder how many others have sat in this exact spot staring at the same stone wall waiting for the next hole. Bell ringing isn't constant. It comes in bursts, morning chimes, funeral tolls, wedding peals, curfews. And between those bursts is this. Stillness, silence, but not the peaceful kind. More the sort that wraps around you like a wet cloak. You shuffle toward the window slit. Outside the village stirs. A woman pours water into a bucket. A child chases a chicken arms outstretched like a scarecrow on the move. A horse snorts, shaking flies from its eyes. You're apart from them now, not below, not above, just aside. It's an odd place to exist. And it makes you think what kind of person chose this, or didn't choose but found themselves here anyway. Maybe an orphan, maybe a younger son with no land to inherit. Maybe someone running from something or toward it. You look down at your hands. They already bear the faint mark of the rope. A little red line across the palm. A beginning. There's something oddly comforting in that. Your fingertips brush the gloves again. You imagine Tom fingers stinging, muttering under his breath as he patched them by candlelight. Maybe he hummed. Maybe he swore creatively. Maybe he didn't speak at all. In the corner of the room stands a wooden bucket. Not for decoration, a necessity. No plumbing here. Just the basics, and even those are debatable. A mouse darts across the far beam, pauses, stares at you. You nod. He scurries on unimpressed. Your body wants to lie down. Your mind wants to escape. But neither gets what it wants. You sit instead, hands folded, absorbing the sounds of a tower after ringing. It creaks. It breathes. It remembers. This is not a place for glory. No banners will fly for you. No songs will be sung. But the bell's voice is yours to wake, and that is something. You stretch out on the mattress. It rustles like dry leaves, and something pokes your back. You fish it out, a small carving shaped like a clapper, the heart of a bell. On one side, a word is etched, stand, a reminder, a name. You set it on the shelf and close your eyes. Outside, life goes on. Bread is baked, pigs are fed, children shout. But inside, high above it all, you lie between echoes. And somewhere far below, a dog barks, once sharp, defiant, as if to say, you've chosen this. You smile. No. You've been chosen. And now you wait. You wake to the sound of silence. Not the deep nighttime silence that swallows up the world, but the alert waiting silence of a room that knows something's coming. You blink, stretch, and your back answers with a complaint that sounds like a rusty hinge. There's a soft knock on the wooden beam outside your door. You don't jump. You're not surprised. It's more like a memory than a sound, as if your body already knew it was time. You open the door and find a bundle waiting. Bread wrapped in cloth, a sliver of hard cheese, a note smudged and brief, next toll sexed. Ring slow, pause thrice. You nod to no one in particular. Sext. The midday prayer bell. A slow, thoughtful tone. You begin to descend to the chamber again, hands brushing the rough stone, each step familiar now. The rope greets you like an old friend, a friend that occasionally slaps you in the face if you're not careful. You ready your stance. But this time, you remember to wrap the gloves around your palms. Not Tom's, yours. A new pair stiff with starch and intention. You grip the rope and exhale, pull. This ring is different. It's not an announcement. It's not urgent. It's reflective. A slow peel meant to guide villagers toward thoughtfulness, not action. You begin to find the rhythm. Pull, breathe, pull, pause. On the third ring you stop and let the silence bloom. Then you begin again. The midday bell has rules. It must be slow enough to be heard across the fields, but not so slow that it fades into forgetfulness. A heartbeat stretched thin. And as you ring, you begin to think not just of the bell, but of the people it speaks to. A farmer leaning on his scythe, wiping his brow with a sleeve already soaked through. A baker removing loaves with hands like leather. A widow setting her spoon down in silence. They all pause just for a moment because of you. And yet they may never know your name. It's an odd kind of power, anonymous and exact. You tug the rope with care, counting out the pause. 1, 2, 3. In that pause, your mind wanders. You think about the phrase pulling your weight. Here it's literal. You must match the bell's demands. Too soft and it won't swing. Too hard and you'll lose control, maybe lose a tooth if the rope snaps back wrong. It's a delicate conversation, one you can only learn through failure. And fail, you do. On the fifth ring, you pull too soon. The bell stutters, a clumsy cough in place of a toll. You wince, though no one else would notice, except maybe the old priest whose ears are rumoured to catch even the softest misstep. You imagine him downstairs, raising an eyebrow over his porridge. You adjust. You forgive yourself. Because every bell ringer has done it. Even Tom, you bet. Even whoever carved stand-in to the clapper-shaped talisman you keep on your shelf now. By the final ring you found it again. The rhythm, the breath, the silence after. You stop. Let the rope settle. The bell swings once more on its own this time. A final echo. A sigh. You sit down on the wooden bench, body warm, heart steady. And you wonder how often in life do we get to make a sound that everyone hears, but no one sees us make. It's humbling. And a little thrilling. You eat your bread, it's dry. But the cheese is sharp, a welcome contrast. You chew slowly like someone with time. Because in this tower you do. Your job is rhythm, not rush. A breeze slips through the cracks in the stone, carrying the faint scent of dung and rosemary. Someone's cooking. Someone's cleaning. The village spins on, tethered by your quiet work. You lean back, close your eyes. And the silence now isn't heavy. It's earned. You feel it before you see it. A low hum, rising through the soles of your feet, the bones of the tower, the rope still swaying ever so slightly from your last ring. It's not a sound exactly, more like the ghost of a sound. The kind of presence that makes the hairs on your arms stand at attention. You look up. There it is. The bell. Still. Massive. Quiet but not silent. You stand beneath it now, gazing up at the great bronze mouth as though it might yawn and speak. It doesn't. It simply waits. And you realize you don't ring a bell like this. You serve it. You circle around its base. The metal is rough in places, greened with age, etched with strange patterns, leaves grapes, what might be angels or saints, depending on how your eyes interpret shadows. At the very top, through a gap in the tower roof, a shaft of sunlight finds the crown. You can just see the iron yoke bolted tight with pins thicker than your wrists. You step closer. The bell's clapper hangs inside like a tongue of iron, thick, ominous, curved slightly as if curled in thought. It's almost poetic if you ignore the fact that it weighs nearly 200 pounds and could kill a man if it swung free. And that's the thought that settles into your chest. The bell could kill you. It's not symbolic. It's not myth. It's practical mechanical absolute. If the yoke cracked, if the rope snapped, if your foot slipped mid-swing, this noble, sacred, church-endorsed device would flatten you like bread dough. And yet you feel calm, because danger when known is somehow less frightening. You remember something the old man muttered when he gave you the key. Bronze don't forgive. At the time it sounded like nonsense. Now it feels like scripture. You sit at the edge of the chamber, staring at the great bell, thinking about what it must carry. Not just sound, but memory. This bell rang for baptisms, for funerals, for fire, for feast. It rang for war. It rang when the bishop arrived, and when he left in silence. It rang for the plague, the famine, the year the river froze over. It rang when the mill burned, when the queen died, when the comet passed. It has seen every sorrow and every joy pass beneath it, and all it asks is to be rung. You wonder, do people down below hear the bell and think of what it means? Or is it just noise now expected and ignored? Does meaning fade with repetition? You lean back and stretch your shoulders, still echoing with effort. And then, as your hand brushes the wood beside you, you find a small notch, a carved name. Agnes. You trace it with a fingertip. Maybe she was the bell founder's daughter, or the first bell ringer. Or maybe she just snuck up here to escape chores. You'll never know, but for a moment you feel less alone. Because someone else once sat where you sit, now touched this same stone, stared up at this same weight. You pick up a small cloth from the corner and begin wiping down the bell's base, not because anyone told you to, but because it feels right. Dust rises in slow spirals, and with each stroke the bell seems to breathe. You wonder if it minds being silent, if it dreams of ringing when no one's around to hear, or if it's content to wait like an old storyteller who knows their audience always returns. One strange thing, you notice a faint dent on the bell's lip, too small to be damaged from use. You run your finger across it. There's a story here. You can feel it. Was it dropped, mishandled during casting? Hit by a stone during a protest? A misplaced hammer during installation? Whatever it was, it left a mark. And the bell still sings. Maybe that's the lesson. You stand, stretch again, and pat the bronze gently, like thanking a tired horse. Then you return to your little loft. The mattress welcomes you like an old friend who doesn't ask questions. You lie down, and before your eyes close, you whisper to the ceiling. Tell me again tomorrow, because somehow you know it will. The afternoon sun slants through the tiny slit of your window, painting a thin golden stripe across the wall. It's warm, almost too warm. You've kicked off the scratchy blanket rolled halfway out of the mattress's embrace, and now lie half-draped over the edge, one hand brushing the cool floorboards. And then, as if summoned by thought alone, he appears. The priest. Not with trumpets or bells of his own mind, you. Just a creak of the stairs, a cough that sounds half-performed, and the soft rustle of wool robes against rough stone. He doesn't knock. He never knocks. Afternoon bell was steady, he says, voice like old parchment. You're learning. You sit up slowly. Your body protests. He carries a tray bread, a fig something that might be stew, though it quivers like it's unsure about life. You nod politely, He sets it down, then glances toward the bell chamber. Did you know he says that for centuries, that bell wasn't just to mark the hours. It was our thunder. You blink. Thunder. He chuckles. Aye, divine thunder. To chase off storms, plague demons, and once a swarm of frogs. You raise an eyebrow. He shrugs. Worked for the frogs at least. You let him talk. It's what priests do best. He explains how during the Middle Ages, it was common belief that bells could ward off danger. Their voice was not mere metal, but sacred command. Consecrated with holy oil, inscribed with Latin prayers, these weren't bells, they were weapons of light. There's even a Latin phrase for it. He adds, tapping the air for emphasis. Fulgura frango. I break the lightning. Lovely, isn't it? You chew your bread and nod. Lightning, broken by bronze. Not a bad image. He moves to the window and peers out. Back when superstition was currency, a bell ringer held real power. Your tolls could bring calm or panic. A mistimed peal might send villagers scattering, thinking doom had come early. You glance at the rope coiled quietly like a nap-taking snake. Was it ever used in war? He smiles, slow and thin. Once the bell called men to arms when the invaders crossed the river. Another time it warned of fire, but always it spoke of the divine. Heaven's voice booming from stone and timber. He turns. But now you wait. Now it mostly wakes goats and late bakers. You both laugh, quietly, respectfully. He sits on the edge of the shelf, balancing like he's done it before. You should know, though, he says more serious now, that not all the old beliefs have faded. Some still climb this tower with fear in their hearts. Fear of what he gestures toward the bell, of what it holds, of who it remembers. You feel the chill return. He continues. There are stories, foolish of course, that the bell can echo what it last rang for. That if it tolled for death, it carries that weight until it rings for life again, like a ledger. You chew more slowly now. He stands. You're its voice. Just remember, voices leave echoes. And with that, he leaves. You're alone again. The tray steams faintly beside you. The fig is soft, overripe. The stew still quivers. You glance back toward the bell. You don't feel fear. You feel reverence. A strange word, dusty and formal but fitting. Because yes, this bell was thunder once. Not in sound alone, but in belief. It shook not just roofs, but hearts. And maybe somewhere deep in the bronze that purpose still lingers. You sip the stew. It's better than it looks. Just barely. As the light fades, you rise and run your fingers along the rope. It's dry, familiar, and you whisper just for yourself, I break the lightning. And for a moment, you almost believe it. The bell doesn't forgive lateness. Not in the way people don't forgive it. The bell doesn't care if you overslept, if your shoes were missing, if your porridge boiled over. The bell just expects. And the people, oh the people, remember every second you miss. This morning you're late. Only by a minute. Maybe two. But as you jog up the stone steps, breath-hitching boots, thudding with the desperation of small regrets, you feel it in the walls, the knowing. You grab the rope. It's still, waiting. Judging you pull hard, too hard. The bell lurches forward with a metallic grunt swinging unevenly. The rope snaps up and catches your thumb. You hiss more from embarrassment than pain. Down in the village, someone surely looked at the sun and muttered, "Shh." Late again. In the medieval world, timing isn't just a matter of pride, it's theology, order, fear. The bell was the clock. A poor substitute for sundials on cloudy days, yes, but more reliable in some ways. It told people when to pray, when to eat, when to lock their doors. And if it rang wrong or not at all, chaos stirred. Once in a nearby village, a tardy bell ringer was fined a full week's wages. In another, he was tied to the post for 3 hours in the cold. But the worst, the tales of the mock toll. You've heard whispers. If a bell ringer slept in too many times, The town's children would be sent to the tower steps to ring with tin pans and spoons, mimicking his lateness in awful cacophony. A chorus of shame. Imagine it being woken not by the dawn, but by small, smirking faces clanging pots in your honor. You shudder. The rope bites into your hand again, but you find your pace. Pull. Breathe. Pull. The bell eventually forgives you. Or maybe just forgets. The echo moves across the valley. You imagine the farmer pitchfork paused in midair, nodding to himself. The milkmaid blinking at the delay but adjusting. The priest glancing at the altar, muttering something about unreliable youth. And for a brief moment you laugh. Because in all this, the rules, the timing, the rituals, you're still human. And so were they. You think of Tom, of Agnes, of every ringer before you who probably tripped on the stairs, missed a note, rang too fast, or got distracted by a particularly poetic sunrise. Being the village timekeeper sounds noble, until your shoelace snaps, or your stomach reminds you it skipped dinner. You finish the ring with care, no flourishes, just duty. And then you sit. The tower is quiet again, except for the faint whistle of a morning wind. You wonder, did people ever resent the bell? Surely they must have. When it interrupted dreams, when it called them to hard work, when it told them they were late, sinful, slothful, or unwed, did they ever wish for silence? You reach for your cup of water. It's cold, but welcome. And you realize something. Time doesn't care how you feel about it. It just moves, and you ring it. That's your place, late or not. Your back is barely settled against the wooden beam when you hear it, the hurried thud of footsteps on the stair. Someone's coming. A knock, 3 quick taps. Then the door swings open. It's the priest again. Breathless robes askew, a flicker of urgency in his usually measured eyes. Wedding, he says. You blink. Now he nods, handing you a folded paper. They've moved it up. Rain's coming. You open it. A name you don't recognize. 2 initials joined by a sketch of a heart. Ring joyful. 12 tolls. Fast bright. You tuck the paper into your sleeve and rise. Downstairs, someone laughs a sharp, eager sound. The kind that happens when nerves finally spill over into giddiness. You make your way to the bell chamber, pace quickening. This time the rope feels light, not easier, just charged. Like it knows this ring is different, you take your stance, and you pull. The bell leaps into motion. Its voice is lighter now, if such a thing is possible. Higher, faster, skipping across rooftops like a stone over water. A wedding bell is meant to lift, to bless, to chase away sorrow like birds from a field. Toll, pause, toll, faster. Each ring is a shout of joy. And below the village responds. Children laugh, doors open. A pig escapes and is quickly chased. You imagine the bride peeking from behind her veiled cheeks, pink fingers clenched in a bouquet of herbs and borrowed lace. You pull with rhythm, now letting the joy build. Not every bell is a command. Some are invitations to gather, to celebrate, to remember that not all duties are burdens. You ring faster, letting the beat dance your arms, loosening into the tempo. And then tradition strikes. The 12th toll. You must end on a flourish. It's not written down, but everyone expects it. The last toll of a wedding bell should echo longer, richer, sweeter, as if to carry their names a little further across the sky. You take a breath and pull. The bell swings wide. Its sound blooms full and warm, a long note that hums into silence like a bow sliding off a final violin string. You stop. Let the rope settle. Below applause. Distant but there. Not for you, not really. But also just a little bit for you. You sit, legs stretched out, breath quick but happy. And you think some tolls stay with people forever. A girl 10 years from now might hear a bell and remember today's laughter. An old man might recall how his own wedding was just as rushed, just as loud, just as joyfully chaotic. Bells hold memory. They are the scrapbook of the village, and you turn the pages. There's a soft knock again. You look up. A boy, thin, red-cheeked eyes too big for his face, stands in the doorway, holding a plate of pastries. From the bride, he says, grinning. You nod, take the plate. The pastries are uneven, the sugar clumped in corners, but they are warm, and they taste of cinnamon, and something else, something like gratitude. You eat one crumbs falling into your lap, and you smile, because today the bell didn't warn or scold or time your breathing. Today it sang. Evening settles slowly like a cat folding into a cushion. You lean against the stone frame of the bell chamber, chewing what's left of the bride's pastry. The sugar's gone slightly damp, but the warmth lingers more in memory than temperature. Below, the village grows softer. Voices blend into murmurs. Smoke curls up from chimneys carrying stories and stew. Somewhere a lute is plucked without urgency. And then you see it, the clapper. Not the bell, the clapper. It hangs inside the bell like a secret. You've seen it all day, of course. It's part of your work. But only now in the late golden light do you really notice it. It's not symmetrical. It curves slightly like a question mark. Thick at the base, tapering near the hinge. Pitted in places, scored with tiny lines. And at the tip, a dent. You narrow your eyes. Clappers you'd been told were solid, simple, uncomplicated. But this one has a story. You walk closer, careful of the boards, and reach a hand toward the great bell. You hesitate, then touch. The clapper is warm from the day's ringing, and heavy. Not just in weight, but in presence. It reminds you of the inside of a knee oddly, all tendon and tucked power. A humble part of something great, but the thing that makes all the noise. Without the clapper, the bell is just a sculpture. And you realize this job, this duty is all about timing. Because if the clapper hits too soon, the bell chokes. Too late, and the echo fades to nothing. Just right, you get music. Of a sort. But sometimes you miss. And that's when it happens, bell shock. It sneaks up on you. You're ringing happily, rhythm in place, and suddenly the bell swings back too far, or you misjudge your pull and wham. The rope jerks, your stance falters, and the clapper delivers a surprise. Today, it catches your shoulder. Not hard, not dangerous, but enough to jolt you. You curse softly, not in rage, in reverence. You sit down, rubbing the spot. It'll bruise, not the first, not the last. This is bell shock. Every ringer knows it. Some call it the slap. Others bronze's kiss. It's the moment the bell reminds you that you're not in control. You're a partner, not a master. You check the rope, no fray, no twist. The tension feels right. It wasn't the bell's fault. It was yours. A second's distraction, a stray thought. Maybe the pastry. You laugh, quietly, but it echoes. The sound bounces off the stone and back into your chest. And you think, isn't that what bells do? They echo. Not just sound, but self. They take your motion, your energy, and return it transformed. You lie back on the wooden floor, staring up into the hollow of the bell, its great metal body now still and soft in the darkening sky. You whisper to it. Fair enough, because the clapper is not cruel. It just insists you pay attention. You breathe and feel the rhythm settle back into your bones. That night's sleep doesn't come easily. You lie on the mattress, eyes open the ceiling, beams silhouetted in moonlight. The wind still rattles somewhere in the walls, fussing like an old man rearranging his chair. Your shoulder throbs in time with your pulse. The bruise has deepened, turned the colour of plum skin left too long on the vine. You shift. The mattress sighs, and from the rafters above a soft scurry. Your mouse friend again. You imagine giving him a name, Thomas, perhaps, in honour of your predecessor. Or Captain Crumb. Something dignified. He's earned it. You roll over and stare at the door. Something's keeping you awake. Not fear, not discomfort. Just curiosity. That hollow floorboard. You sit up, drag your cloak around your shoulders like a thoughtful snail and tiptoe down to the bell chamber. The rope sways gently in its sleep. The bell looms above, silent, respectful. You kneel by the darkened patch in the floor and press your fingers along the seam. It gives, only slightly. You wedge a spoon, the dull one from your dinner tray, into the gap and twist. A board lifts with a quiet groan. Inside, a bundle wrapped in oilcloth, small, dusty, tied with twine so brittle it snaps at your touch. You unwrap it slowly, fingers trembling slightly from cold or anticipation or both. It's a notebook, bound in cracked leather, pages uneven, ink-stained. You flip it open. The first page reads, "Notes of the bellkeeper." For the next, begin with care. Your breath catches. You settle on the bench, pull the cloak tighter, and start to read. The handwriting is cramped, but legible letters looped with care. The entries span years, maybe decades. Some are lists, time sequences, names. Others are observations. Rain echoes deeper in the eastern wall. Do not ring fast after frost rope stiffens. Agnes visited again. Left dried apples. Sweet. You smile. Agnes. Again. A ghost, a lover. A figment you read on. One passage stands out. Ink darker, pressure heavier. Today, the bell fell silent mid-ring. Clapper jammed. I wept. Not from failure, from the sudden stillness. You feel that. The fear of silence in a job made of sound. You turn the page. A drawing. The bell sketched in careful lines. The clapper exaggerated. Beneath it, a note, beware the counterweight. When loose, it swings wild. You glance up at your bell. All seems still. Secure. But you file the advice away somewhere between caution and comfort. You flip further. There's a map, crude but clearer layout of the bell tower, the chamber, the stairwell, the loft, and one small penciled X beneath your mattress. You blink. Another compartment. You glance toward the stairs. No, not tonight. You close the notebook gently. You understand now this isn't a logbook. It's a confession, a conversation across years. One bell ringer to another. A quiet lifeline for someone like you. Someone who never expected to find meaning in metal and rope and mildew. You tuck it into your cloak and return upstairs. Captain Crumb scurries across the beam as you enter. You nod. You knew, didn't you? He says nothing, but you sense the smirk. You place the book under your mattress beside the carved clapper from days before. And as you lie back, you feel less alone. Because someone else listened to the wind, felt the bruise, missed the timing, loved the sound, and left you this, a gift in the silence. Morning arrives, slowly peeling back the darkness like the edge of an old scroll. You're already awake. The book sits beside you under the mattress, warm from your side, its presence like a second heartbeat in the room. You haven't even opened your eyes yet, but you know it's there like a whispered promise you're still trying to understand. Captain Crumb scurries near your ear, daring as ever. You stretch fingers, brushing the rough wood of the wall, and sit up. Your shoulder complains. The bruise speaks its piece. But beneath the ache, something stirs. Not quite excitement, not yet confidence. Just a sense of continuity. As if you've stepped into a play mid-performance, your lines waiting already written. You stand and move toward the bell chamber. It's quiet now. The early toll won't come for another hour, but the air already hums with anticipation. Or maybe that's just your imagination. You glance at the floor. The compartment beneath the board lies open empty, save for a few stray strands of twine from the oilcloth. You half expect more treasures to appear overnight, but not today. You place a hand on the bell's rope and close your eyes. Still cool, still waiting. It's funny you think how something so grand can also feel patient. as though it knows time better than any clock, as though it knows you. You descend the stairs and step outside just for a moment, just to feel the world beyond the tower walls. The village is waking. You see the baker scraping his oven clean flour like snow on his shoulders. A woman draws water from the well, one child on her hip, another tugging at her sleeve. Chickens argue somewhere off to your left, and then you see him, the smith. Broad-shouldered, soot-faced eyes like river stones. He glances up from his work nods once and returns to hammering. You've never spoken, but something about that nod makes you feel known. You return to the tower before the chill sinks too deep into your fingers. Upstairs, the notebook beckons. You open it again near the middle this time and read, "Never ring when angry." You raise an eyebrow. The entry continues. Your arms will obey, but the bell will know. It will echo sharp. The village will feel it, even if they don't name it. You sit with that for a while. Emotions echo. Through metal. Through air. Through people. You never thought of the bell as an instrument of emotion, just of duty. But maybe it's both. Another entry. After the miller's funeral, I rang soft. Too soft, Agnes noticed. Left honey in silence. I wept again. You smile. Agnes is becoming very real to you now. Realer than some of the villagers you pass daily. You wonder, did she live in the village? Did she climb these stairs? Did she ever pull the rope just once for fun? You close the book gently and tuck it back beneath the mattress. The hour approaches. You descend once more. This morning's ring is a standard peal, steady 5 tolls, no embellishment. You pull the rope with new awareness. Your grip feels different now. Not stronger, not lighter, but connected. Each tug draws sound not just from metal, but from memory, from the book, from the people who came before. The bell answers, loud, but not brash, firm, but not cruel. You ring carefully, letting the echoes stretch, imagining it weaving through doorways, circling steeples, nudging cats off windowsills. And as you ring, your mind returns to the note in the book, never ring when angry. What about joy? Does the bell reflect joy too? You add a flourish, barely a hitch in tempo, a flicker of rhythm. You think it does. You finish the ring and let the rope settle. The silence afterward is kind. You step outside again, just for a breath. The smith has stopped his hammering. He's watching the horizon, where the fog begins to lift. For a moment he looks like a statue, carved from soot and heat. You consider waving. You don't. Instead, you return inside and fetch your spoon. Today, you'll pry up the other floorboard, the one marked with an X on the map. You don't expect much, but your heart beats faster anyway. The spoon doesn't last long. It bends with a quiet protest as you wedge it beneath the second floorboard, the one marked with that curious little X in the notebook's crude map. You stare at the twisted metal in your hand and sigh. A knight has his sword, a bell ringer, a bent spoon and a bruise for a shield. But the board gives way anyway with a tired creak and a small puff of dust that tickles your nose. You lean back, sneeze once and peer inside. Not much. A folded cloth. Something wrapped within it. You draw it out slowly, reverently, like lifting an old memory from a drawer. The cloth is blue faded to grey, with a simple border stitched in red thread. Inside is a pendant, small round a brass disc, etched with what appears to be a bird mid-flight. A swallow, maybe, or a dove. On the back, a single word. Wait. You turn it over in your palm. The etching is crude, but not careless. Every curve deliberate, every line pressed deep. It wasn't meant to be pretty. It was meant to last. And that word, wait, a command, a plea, a reminder. You wrap it back in the cloth and hold it against your chest for a moment, as if trying to catch its warmth. Then you tuck it beneath the mattress beside the book, the clapper carving, and the growing hoard of mystery and memory. Your little bell-keeper's treasure chest. The tower creaks again. Not the playful kind, but the long, deep sigh of old wood, remembering something it forgot to tell you. You descend the steps to the chamber rope in hand once more. Not to ring this time, just to feel. The bell is still, its body cool, almost reluctant to wake. But you grip the rope anyway, testing the weight. There's something different about the feel this morning. Not resistance exactly, more like hesitation. You think of the pendant's message, wait. You release the rope, sit on the bench, and wait. The bell tower is not always a place of action. Sometimes it's a place of stillness, of watching, of listening. You close your eyes, and you hear it. Not the bell, not yet, but life. Beyond the stone walls, the world spins quietly. A cart rolls over cobbles. A dog barks once short and annoyed. A door creaks, a fire snaps, a laugh echoes across the green. The village breathes. And you're no longer just hearing it, you're part of it. A strange sort of peace settles over you. Like when you're the only one awake in a house full of sleeping bodies. Not lonely, just chosen. You rise and return upstairs, the pendant's message humming in your thoughts. In the loft, Captain Crumb is perched beside the carved clapper token, whiskers twitching. You nod at him. Found something. He sniffs disapprovingly, as if to say he already knew. You lie back on the mattress, hands behind your head, staring up at the ceiling beams. Dust motes drift like tiny stars. You think about waiting. It's not a virtue much admired anymore. Even in this time, in this place, people hurry. To market, to church, to gossip. But the tower teaches you otherwise. Here, everything is built on waiting. The rope waits. The bell waits. You wait. For what? For moments. For tolls. For meaning. You wonder if the bell itself ever grows impatient. If it ever wishes it could ring just once on its own for no reason at all. Just to sing. You think of that. And then you laugh. Because of course, that's what the wind does. Every now and then, a breeze slips through the cracks and nudges the bell into a whisper of movement. Not a full chime, but a shrug, a breath, a memory. Like the bell dreaming aloud, you glance at the floorboard again. Still open, still empty. Except now it feels fuller somehow. Not from what you found, but from what you remembered while looking. You lie there for a long time, and you wait. That night, the bell wakes you. Not with sound, with weight. You dream of it vast and bronze, swinging not from the tower, but through the sky, tethered to nothing, its rope trailing behind like a comet's tail. You stand beneath it, arms raised, trying to catch the clapper before it falls. You wake with a start. Darkness. The tower around you hums faintly, the way old buildings do when no one's watching. You sit up, heart thudding, unsure if you heard something or simply remembered it too hard. You reach under the mattress fingers, grazing the familiar corners, the notebook, the pendant, the carving. Their presence is steadying. The air feels heavier tonight. You pull on your cloak and creep down to the chamber, bare feet, whispering across wood. You stop at the rope and listen. Nothing. The bell is asleep. You place a hand on the rope anyway. It sways only slightly, the kind of motion that might come from settling stone or shifting beams. But in that moment, you feel it again. The presence, not a ghost, not a spirit, something quieter, like being watched by the past. You step closer to the bell. A draft moves through the tower, not cold, not warm, just there. You look up into the bell's hollow and whisper. You remember, don't you? The bell does not answer, but it doesn't need to. You sit at the edge of the chamber, back against the wall, and open the notebook again. The pages crack softly. Tonight you search for answers. You flip forward past notes on rain patterns and ropeware past timings for funeral tolls and feast day variations. And there, near the end, an entry written in a different hand. Not cramped, not careful. Looser, faster. The ink darker, more recent. I couldn't ring today, not after what I saw. You pause. The next line. She climbed the stairs barefoot, said she wanted to hear the bell from closer than the square. She smiled. Another pause. Then when I rang it, she stepped forward. I didn't see her in time. The bell sang. She didn't. Your breath catches. You close the book. Gently, hands trembling. The bell is not guilty, but it is capable. You stand and walk to the center of the chamber, directly beneath the bell. You look up again, the moonlight catching the faint curve of its lip. She smiled. That's what the note said. You imagine her, whoever she was, stepping forward with curiosity, or reverence, or simply poor timing, and the bell swinging, fulfilling its duty, unaware. Or maybe too aware. You place your hand on the rope. Wait. The pendant's message returns. You finally understand. Wait, not just in patience, but in caution, in care, in respect. You descend to the base of the tower step, outside into the night. The village is dark, save for a flicker of candlelight from the smith's hut. You hear faint clanging, soft, deliberate. A late project. Or perhaps he too was woken by a dream. You look up at the bell tower. From below, it appears still stern holy. It keeps its secrets well. You walk the edge of the garden, passing rows of herbs now hunched under dew. A small stone bench invites you. You sit. The night hums with insect song and the occasional rustle of something small and furred in the grass. The moon is high now, casting silver onto the rooftops. You breathe deeply and think. The bell is not evil, nor is it benign. It is a keeper of moments, some joyful, some shattering. It remembers. You look down at your hands. The bruise is fading, but another one deeper begins to form in your chest. Not pain, reverence, responsibility. You rise and return to the tower. At the base of the stairs, you pause, then speak aloud to no one in particular. I'll be careful. I promise. And the tower in its silence seems to listen. Morning light slants through the narrow windows, like fingers feeling their way through the dust. You wake slower than usual, not because you're tired, though you are, but because the weight of the notebook's final entries still lingers behind your eyes. The girl who smiled, the bell that sang, the ringer who couldn't forget. You stare at the ceiling for a long time, watching a spider descend in lazy spirals from the rafters. Captain Crumb ignores the spider entirely. He's busy dismantling a crumb of biscuit stolen from your supper tray. His indifference feels oddly reassuring. You rise and move to the small table beneath the window where the pendant lies beside your cup. The word etched on its back feels louder today. Wait. You lift it, press the cool metal to your palm and whisper, I heard you. Then you dress slower than usual, careful with each button, each bootstrap. The bruise on your shoulder is almost gone now, faded to a ghost of itself. But the new bruise, the one tucked deeper, has only just begun to colour. Down in the chamber, the rope waits. You stare at it for a while, then pull gently. Just enough to feel the bell shift. A whisper of movement. A respectful nod. Today's ring is for the feast day of a minor saint. No one remembers what he did, some act of kindness involving turnips possibly, but he has a stained glass window and a slot in the calendar, and so the bell must ring. You step into position and hesitate. Your grip tightens on the rope. You remember the notebook's line, never ring when angry. But what about grief? You're not sure what you feel now, except a dull ache where understanding has taken root. You feel the weight of stories, not just the girl, but the ringer who loved her. The ones who carved clappers and waited for apples. The ones who waited. You pull. The bell answers, It rings low today. Not in pitch, the tone is fixed, but in character, as though its voice carries more dust, more time. It echoes longer than you expect, lingering in the chamber like perfume from a long-departed guest. Toll. Wait. Toll again. You match its rhythm. And beneath it all, you begin to hear something else. A whisper. No, a whistle. Not imagined, not memory, real. You glance to the window. Wind again, but sharper. You finish the toll 5 even peals and let the rope fall still. Then you listen. The wind outside has shifted. It carries a new sound. A chime. No, several. Faint, high-pitched. Not bells like yours. Smaller. Metal on metal. You rush to the window and lean out. Down below a procession. Children. They wear paper crowns and carry sticks draped with tin pans and old keys. One holds a triangle. Another has a bent horseshoe strung on a wire. Together they walk the lane, ringing and clanging a chaotic symphony of delight. You squint, and then you laugh. The mock toll. You've read about it, but never seen one. There's no shame in it this time, no scolding of a tardy bell ringer. It's part of the Saints' Day festival now. A children's game, a village joke. They clatter their bells in mock tribute, giggling, proud of the noise they make. The wind carries their music up to you like a gift wrapped in chaos. You lean out the window and wave. One of them sees you, a girl with red ribbons in her hair, and waves back enthusiastically, her wooden spoon clanging against a pot lid. You grin. Then you sit back down on the bench, the echo of their joy still ringing in your ears. The notebook rests beside you, still open to the heavy entry. You flip forward. The next page is blank. You stare at it, then reach for your quill. You write feast day, children paraded with spoons and pans. The bell listened. I laughed. You pause, and then add, I think she would have laughed too. You close the book and place it beneath your mattress. The tower breathes again. You glance at the bell, and for the first time today you don't feel watched. You feel accompanied. The next morning you wake to the smell of pears. Not strong, not fresh, just the faint perfume of something once sweet, now slowly fading. You blink at the wooden ceiling above and wonder if you're dreaming, or if Captain Crumb has taken to hoarding fruit. You sit up and spot the source. A small parcel wrapped in cloth, tucked neatly by the door. You crawl over, unwrap it slowly. 2 pears, slightly bruised. One with a note pinned by a crooked stitch from the baker's daughter. Thank you for the wedding ring. You smile. The pears are soft, sun-warm despite the chill, and when you bite into one, the juice is overripe and slightly gritty. Still, it tastes like kindness. You save the second for later and begin your usual ritual boots cloak, stretch the shoulder. The bruise is almost gone now, though the memory pulses beneath your skin. The bell's rope swings faintly when you enter the chamber. A lazy gesture, as if greeting you with a yawn. You place your hand on it. The tower is quieter than usual. No toll scheduled, no special rites. Just an ordinary morning, the kind that wraps itself in the mundane and waits for something to notice it. You decide to clean. Not for appearance, no one comes up here, but for clarity. Dust has a way of blurring things, dulling edges, softening echoes. You find a rag and start with the window slit. The glass is smudged with old fingerprints, maybe yours, maybe someone's from a century ago. As you wipe it, the village comes into sharper view. Cottages, smoke trails the market square, slowly filling with baskets and banter. You move to the floorboards, clearing crumbs. Captain Crumb gives you a mournful look from atop your mattress and bits of hay. The small altar-like shelf near the wall holds melted candle ends and a tiny clay figure, a saint with no face, and one foot chipped clean off. You pause. The clay is cool in your hand. The saint may be once revered, maybe once just decoration feels forgotten. You set it upright and whisper a gentle, "There you are." Next, you wipe the rope itself. It resists slightly the fibers catching on the rag, but you persist. As you work, the bell above shifts ever so slightly, humming low in response. It almost feels grateful. You pause, look up and murmur. Do you miss it? The ringing. The bell doesn't answer, but a pigeon flaps its wings near the eaves, and the sound is strangely satisfying. You finish with the bench, your bench now, where generations have sat weighted written. The wood is grooved, the grain smoothed by elbows, thighs, perhaps even tears. You find a small carving near one leg a heart. Inside it, 2 initials worn almost away. You trace it with a finger and smile. Love lived here once. Perhaps it still does. You take out the notebook again, and flip to the blank pages near the back. You write, cleaned the tower, found a saint and a heart, gave both their places back. You add a tiny sketch of the faceless clay figure just to remember. Then you close the book and lean back. The air smells clearer now. Less mildew, more stone and rope and sun. The kind of scent that doesn't fight to be noticed but lingers quiet and firm. You sit in silence. And then a creak. Footsteps on the stair. You tense just for a moment, but it's only the priest. As always, without knocking. He enters, takes a look around and raises an eyebrow. Cleaned, did you? You nod. He walks to the window, peers out, nods again. It's a good day for it. Then he turns, holds out a small sack. More ink. Thought you'd need it. You accept it with a grateful bow of your head. He lingers, eyes on the bell. She's sounding better lately, he says. You smile. She listens. He chuckles. They all do. Even the stubborn ones. Especially the stubborn ones. Then he moves to leave, pausing at the top of the stairs. Remember, he says, a quiet bell is still a bell, just waiting for the right hand. You nod, and he's gone. You return to your place beside the rope, the notebook still warm in your lap. You touch the bell's rope again, and feel it breathe. You dream of ropes, thick ones, thin ones, frayed ones, coiled like sleeping serpents. Ropes knotted and knotted again until they lead nowhere. Ropes dangling from clouds, ropes threading through people's hands like guiding lines. You wake with a start heart beating, like you missed something important. Morning creeps into the tower, like an old cat's slow quiet with a touch of dust in its whiskers. You lie still for a moment, letting the remnants of the dream dissolve into the beams above you. The mattress has taken to groaning with every breath you make. Or maybe that's your back. Captain Crumb is nowhere to be seen. Perhaps gone on an early patrol. Or perhaps he too has grown weary of ropes. You rise and stretch. The tower feels different today. Not darker, just deeper. As though the silence has more weight to it. You descend to the chamber and glance at the rope. It swings just slightly, but not from wind. From memory, perhaps. Today you are not expected to ring. It's a rest day. A rare one. No funerals, no weddings, no saints, not even a market bell. A day to simply exist like a book left open in the sun. You sit on the bench and take out the notebook. You turn to a page marked with a petal, long since pressed flat and colourless. The entry reads, "Once we tied messages to the rope. Love notes, prayers, apologies." They flew up, touched the bell, and vanished into sound. You stare at it, rereading. Then close the book, slowly, hands resting atop it. You glance at the rope again. It waits like always. You rise, fetch a scrap of cloth, and sit cross-legged on the floor with your ink. The cloth is a rough cut from an old sack, but it will do. You dip your pen and write, "I am listening." Just that. No name, no date. Just a sentence that feels like a doorway. You tie the cloth to the rope near the base where your hands usually grip. The message flutters slightly like a secret, trying to decide whether to fly. Then you step back. You don't ring. That would be cheating. Instead, You sit again and watch it. The cloth dances with the breath of the tower, tiny and brave. You wonder what would happen if someone else saw it. Would they know it was for them? Would they write back? You imagine a second scrap tied above yours, then a third, a whole strand of cloths, like a prayer tree, messages fluttering from ringers across time. You smile. The bell has always been the voice. Maybe now it's the ear too. Later you go outside. The sun has burned away the last of the fog, and the village is awash in colour laundry, flapping herbs hung in doorways, a child's red shoes forgotten on a step. You walk slowly, cloak drawn tight, even though the air is warm. You feel like a ghost just for a moment. Not in a sad way, in a gentle way, observing, not intruding. The smith is hammering again, rhythm steady, a song without tune. You pause by his fence. He glances up. You nod. He nods back. You walk on. At the edge of the square you see a group of children drawing in the dust with sticks. Circles, spirals. One of them scrawls a crude bell shape and begins to jump over it. You stop. Watch. Then, when they notice you, you lift a hand. Do you know how many rings it takes to scare a mouse, you ask, tone conspiratorial. They freeze. One shakes his head. You grin. 3. But only if you hum while you do it. They stare at you, then burst into giggles. You tip your imaginary hat and continue walking. Back at the tower, the cloth still flutters. You write in the notebook, tied a message. Heard no reply, but felt the air shift. Saw laughter in the dust. You draw a tiny bell next to the entry with lines radiating from it like rays of sun. And as you rest back against the bench, arms folded behind your head, you think, sometimes the bell doesn't need to ring. Sometimes it only needs to wait. And sometimes the rope tells the story. You begin to notice the way your hands have changed. The calluses have thickened, sure, but it's more than that. There's a stillness to them now, a quiet understanding of when to grip, when to let go. You flex your fingers on the edge of the mattress as dawn yawns through the shutters. Outside, birds argue gently in the trees, as if debating whether it's worth waking up at all. You sit up and run your thumb over the back of your knuckle, tracing the small scar you earned last week. A slip on a nail long forgotten, but now part of your skin's landscape. There's no ringing scheduled this morning. Still you dress. You always do, because the bell waits even when it doesn't call. Down in the chamber, the message cloth remains limp now, motionless in the still air. You consider taking it down, but something in you whispers, not yet. So you leave it. Instead, you light a candle, the one by the little clay saint, faceless and leaning slightly to the left, like he's about to whisper something very wise and slightly inappropriate. The wick catches after 2 tries, and the flickering light dances over the curved surface of the bell above. The shadows remind you of water. You sit on the bench. And then a sound. Not the bell, not the wind. A knock. You turn. A boy stands in the doorway. 10, maybe 11. Cap askew, cheeks smudged with flour. He clutches something in both hands. The priest says you can show me, he blurts. You blink. Show you the rope. The bell. He says, maybe you'd let me pull it. You raise an eyebrow. You want to ring? The boy shrugs, suddenly shy. Just once. You stand, gesture him in. He steps carefully, eyes wide, as if entering a chapel or a dragon's cave. His boots squeak. You bring him to the rope and let him touch it. Don't pull hard, you warn gently. Just feel it. He nods, wraps his fingers around the rope, and tugs barely a twitch. Nothing happens. His face falls. You kneel beside him. Here's a secret, you say. The bell doesn't listen to strength. It listens to rhythm. He frowns. You place your hands gently over his, like dancing or breathing. It's not about pulling, it's about asking. Together you pull. Once, the bell answers soft, surprised. A single note that shivers through the chamber. The boy gasps. You smile. He lets go steps back, eyes shining. It's alive. You nod. He thrusts a bundle at you, bread wrapped in cloth. Mum says thanks for the pears. You accept it with a quiet nod. Then he's gone bounding down the stairs, leaving only echoes and the scent of yeast behind. You sit again. Tear off a piece of bread still warm and chew thoughtfully. The bell hums above you, not in sound but in presence. You open the notebook and write, "Today I taught the bell to a boy." He pulled gently. The bell replied gently, like old friends. You add a small sketch, a stick figure with wild hair and a huge grin beneath a rope. Then close the book. You stare up into the bell's hollow. How many first rings have you seen you whisper? No answer, but the air feels warmer. You rise, fold the breadcloth, and set it beside the message tied to the rope. Then you leave it all there, the cloth, the candle, the clay saint, and climb back to the loft. Captain Crumb is asleep on your boot. You nudge him gently. He yawns, then rolls over. You lie back and think of the boy's face when the bell answered him, and how just for a moment he looked like you. The wind is louder today. It barges into the tower with none of its usual subtlety, slipping between the stones like a guest who forgot to knock. The bell doesn't move, not yet, but the rope dances gently, the tied message twitching, like it's trying to whisper something in a language you almost understand. You sit at the base of the stairs, boots, unlaced cup of water in your hands, watching the light shift through the window slit. The day is undecided, not rain, not shine, just something in between a mood, more than a weather. Captain Crumb is conspicuously absent. You suspect he's offended by yesterday's bread exchange. He prefers to be the exclusive smuggler of crumbs, or perhaps he's simply found a more interesting loft. You sip the water and think about silence. There are many kinds in the tower. The early morning hush when everything still dreams. The ringing pause between tolls. The heavy silence after news, both good and bad. And then this one now, wind-blown, restless, expectant. You walk to the bell, place a hand on the rope. No schedule today, no command. But something in the air urges movement. You look at the cloth tied near the base, still there, still waiting. You untie it gently, fold it, tuck it into your cloak pocket. Then, carefully, slowly, you take another cloth scrap, dip it in ink, and write. I heard the boys laugh. You tie this new message higher, near where your shoulder meets the rope when you pull. A little further up the journey. Then you grip the rope, not to ring, just to feel. The wind rushes through again, sharp now with the faint scent of rain and chimney smoke. It presses against the bell tower walls like a child peering through a keyhole. You wait and wait. Then on impulse, one pull. Not a toll, not a chime. Just enough to nudge the clapper against the side. A sound like a sigh. It echoes once, then fades. You exhale and sit. And from your pocket, the original message cloth unfurls slightly. I am listening. You smile. You write in the notebook, the wind came to speak. I answered, a sigh for a sigh. Then a new thought occurs. You flip several pages forward, find a blank one, and write in larger, slower strokes. To the next keeper, if you ever feel like the bell is listening too closely, remember this. It's not judging you. It's just echoing your honesty. You cap the ink and stretch your legs. Later you descend into the village, just to stretch, just to see. The baker waves at you, flour-streaked and elbow-deep in dough. The butcher's cat eyes you suspiciously. A group of teenagers barely out of their eggshell years pass you, laughing, tossing an apple between them. You sit on the edge of the fountain and let the spray dust your boots. Nearby, a girl hums a tune while tying herbs into bundles. Sage, rosemary, and something sharp you can't name. You ask, "What's the third one?" She looks up, surprised. Hyssop. Smells like the bell tower after rain, you say, without thinking. She blinks, then smiles. Good smell. You nod, comfortable. You rise, buy a bundle, and return to the tower. The rope greets you like a dog with a long memory. The bell, unmoved, still noble. You tuck the herbs above the window. Let their scents settle into the stone. You whisper for the echoes. And then you sit back down and wait. You dream of the bell ringing itself. It's not a nightmare, not quite. Just a strange echoing image of the rope lifting with no hands of the clapper, swinging with purpose of sound, pulsing outward like a heartbeat in fog. You wake before dawn, breath held, waiting for the echo to stop. But there is no echo, only the usual hum of the tower, the low whisper of wind tracing the stone. Captain Crumb returns dramatically, leaping from the rafters and skittering along the windowsill, as if to announce, "I still run this place." You give him a nod of respect. You rise, wrap yourself in your cloak, and descend to the chamber. The herbs above the window have dried slightly, their scent, gentler now, less sharp, more home-like. A kind of settled comfort, like socks on cold mornings, or the first stretch after a nap. The message on the rope flutters faintly. I heard the boys laugh. You leave it there. Instead, you sit. Pull out the notebook. Today you read further back, long before your time, before even the entry about the girl who smiled. You find a series of short-clipped entries, all from the same year. Winter, snow on the bell. I climbed to brush it, nearly fell, rung too long, rope cracked, drew a crowd, a fox in the chapel, and then this, 3 days of silence, snow too thick, bell too cold. You pause there, 3 days of silence. You imagine it the village, waiting, watching, wondering if the tower had fallen asleep for good, if something had gone wrong, if someone should climb up and check. Did they? The next entry reads, 4th day rang at dawn. Sound cracked but carried, heard cheers. You smile. Sometimes even the bell rests. You look up at yours now. Still strong, still still, waiting. You think of the fox in the chapel. You wonder what it was looking for. Warmth, food god, or maybe it just wanted to hear the echo. You rise, step to the rope, and trace your fingers along its fibers. You don't ring, not today, but your hand lingers there longer than usual. Back upstairs you brew tea, the kind the priest left once bitter, herbal with a hint of something citrus. It tastes like responsibility and clean linens. You sip slowly and watch the world outside stretch awake. The sky is pale, the village rooftops dusted with frost that hasn't yet decided to melt. Smoke curls from chimneys. Someone sings far off a lullaby or a hymn hard to tell. You open the notebook again. Write. Dreamt the bell moved alone. It didn't. Still, I listened harder today. You consider drawing the fox. Instead, you draw a paw print. One small, one large, walking side by side. You close the book. Later, you walk through the village. You take no bread, no pears. You leave no messages. You simply walk. Past the green where the children played. Past the chapel where pigeons now roost. Past the smith's hut, smoke rising, but no hammering today. You pause by the fountain again. A woman sits there already. Older, cloaked, spinning wool. She looks up, nods. You're the bell one. You nod back. She asks, does it ever speak first? You smile. Not with words. She chuckles. That's true of most men. You both laugh quietly, then sit in silence together for a while. When you return to the tower, the herbs have shifted. The rope is still, but the cloth message is gone. You blink. Check the floor. The steps. Nothing. You look again and smile. Because where the cloth once fluttered, something else hangs now. Another message. New ink. New hand. It reads, "I heard it too." You exhale slowly, then sit down and write. Today the bell didn't ring, but something answered. You place your hand over the notebook and whisper, so you're listening too. You don't rush to ring anymore. It's not laziness, not even hesitation. It's reverence in the quietest sense, like approaching a friend who speaks slowly and only when needed, and never twice. This morning, the frost clings a little longer to the corners of the tower, reluctant to loosen its grip. You watch it through the window slit while the steam from your tea curls upward like incense. Captain Crumb perches beside your cup, twitching his nose at the scent. You push a crumb his way, and he accepts without comment, as is the agreement between cohabiting creatures. Downstairs, the rope waits. So does the message. I heard it too. It hangs slightly higher than yours had written in a neater, more deliberate hand. Someone who thought carefully before they tied the knot. You stare at it for a while, then add your own below it. 3 words, "I believe you." It's the closest thing to a conversation you've had all week, and yet it feels more real than most. You don't write in the notebook right away. Instead, you fetch a small bundle from beneath your mattress. The pendant, the carving, the cloth from the pears. You set them out beside you like relics. Then gently, you add something new. A strip of the red thread from the old saint's robe, once chipped, now resting in a bowl beside the herbs. You tie a piece of it around the pendant. Now it feels finished. You don't know why you're doing it, but you trust the feeling. The priest visits just before noon. He says little today, simply hands you a parcel, inside fresh parchment, a nod to your growing entries perhaps. Then he looks at the rope, at the messages. He says nothing, but you see the corner of his mouth twitch. He knows. When he leaves, you begin writing again. This time not in the notebook. You start a letter. You don't know to whom. It begins. Dear future keeper, if you're anything like me, you didn't ask for this job. But you stayed anyway. You stop, reread, then continue. You write of the bruise, of the weight, of the wind, of Captain Crumb's quiet judgment, and the way pears taste better when left unexpectedly at the door. You describe the silence, after ringing, how it wraps around you like a wool blanket, equal parts comfort and suffocation. You describe the smell of hyssop at dawn. You pause there, close the letter, fold it, tie it with thread, and tuck it beneath the floorboard beside the others. You ring only once that day. Just one toll, no reason. No feast, no death, no joy. Just to let the world know you're still here, and that the bell is still listening. Later you return to the window. Watch the children chase each other down the lane. A girl carries something in her hand, small, glinting in the sun. As she passes the tower, she looks up and smiles, not at you, at the bell. You smile back anyway. You open the notebook and write. Sometimes one ring is enough. You draw a single circle, empty, whole. And beneath it, you write one last thing, they're listening. The bell dreams again. Or perhaps you do. In the night you hear it, not the bell itself, but its echo, distant and soft, like the memory of sound. It ripples through your sleep, like a ripple through pond water, gentle and round. When you wake, you expect to find the rope swinging, or a villager at the door with news, but there is nothing. Only mist, thick as milk, clinging to the windows, and muting every noise the world dares to make. You rise and wash your face in the basin. The water is cold enough to make your thoughts crystallize into something sharper, something useful. Captain Crumb is curled into your spare glove paws, twitching. You decide not to disturb him. Downstairs, the rope is perfectly still. The message remains, I believe you, now slightly smudged from morning damp. You sit by it. The stillness of the morning is different today. Not sleepy, not calm, charged. You feel it in the soles of your feet, in the air between your fingers, like the pause before a word too big to speak. You reach into your cloak pocket and remove yesterday's letter, reread it. Then, for the first time, you take a second sheet and write back. Dear past keeper, I didn't ask for it either, but I stayed. Like you. You continue slowly, unsure if this counts as pretending or believing. You write of the new messages on the rope of the cloth, of the way the tower breathes differently at night. You mention the boy, the bread, the pears. You mention laughter and how rare it is and how valuable. You fold the letter and set it beside the first. You consider sealing it with wax, but it feels too formal. Instead, you tie it with a thread from your own cuff. That feels right. When you return upstairs, the mist has thickened. The village is gone from view, swallowed by silence and fog. The bell feels closer in moments like these. Not heavier, not louder, just nearer. You stand beside it, place your hand gently against the bronze curve. The metal is cold, but not unfriendly. I'm still here, you whisper. And somehow that feels like enough. You spend the day in the tower. You don't ring, you don't walk, you write. Pages of memories, of sounds, of smells, of the way the light shifts through the window when it rains. You document everything. Not because you're afraid of forgetting, but because you're afraid no one else will remember. You write of the fox in the chapel, of the saint with no face, of the way the bell rope smells faintly of pine and salt and thyme. You write of the moment you're first when you rang without being told, just because something in you asked. You write of your bruise now healed, and of the bruises that don't. You stop only once to light the candle beside the notebook. The wax drips like slow thoughts. You think of the mist outside the hidden village, the silence that wraps the tower like a shroud and a shawl at once. And you think, what if the bell was never about warning or celebration? What if it was just about presence? A reminder that something constant still exists in a world where so much changes. You close the book, not from exhaustion, from fullness. Then you walk to the rope. Touch it, not to ring, just to say goodnight. And above you, though, it does not move. The bell seems to nod. The mist lifts with reluctance, as if the sky isn't quite ready to surrender the tower back to the world. But by late morning, the rooftops return damp and shimmering. Smoke resumes its curling rituals. Chickens resume their proud declarations. You watch from the window, slit a shawl wrapped around your shoulders, the last heat from your tea pooling in your palms. The bell has not rung in 2 days, and still the world turns. Downstairs, the rope remains quiet, a long muscle at rest. You brush your fingers over it in passing the way one might run a hand across a banister out of habit more than need. You sit at your bench. The messages on the rope have begun to fray at the edges, their cloth corners curling inward like autumn leaves. The ink still holds. I believe you. I heard it too. You add a new one today. Just 2 words. Thank you. You tie it loosely. Let it swing. And for once you don't feel compelled to watch it. Instead, you open the floorboard. The growing archive is still there. Letters, tokens, sketches, and the odd crumb you suspect belongs to Captain Crumb's stash. You add today's message to the pile, smoothing it gently. Then you sit in the quiet, and something stirs beneath your ribs. A memory. One you haven't yet written down. The first night. Your arrival. The way the bell rope seemed like a noose, not a tool. The silence in the village square. The doubt coiled tight behind your eyes. You write about it now. About how the cold had crept up your sleeves, and how every footstep had echoed too loudly. How you'd stood beneath the bell that first night, and wondered if it would even recognize you. You write of your fear, of your loneliness, of how Captain Crumb appeared as if conjured by need alone. You write of how the tower didn't speak, not with words, not with sound, but simply made space for you to exist. You close the book on that entry and breathe easier. The priest visits again, this time with no ink, no parcel, just silence. He sits beside you on the bench for a long moment, doesn't look at the bell, doesn't ask about the messages. He says, "You've changed her voice." You blink. The bell. He nods. She used to speak in declarations. Now she whispers. You think about that and realize he's right. The last few tolls, even when clear and bright, have felt soft around her. Not weaker, just wiser, like a singer who's learned to value the breath between notes. He stands, says, "You've done well," and leaves. You write again. The priest heard it too. Then beneath it, "I think the bell is healing." Later, you climb into the loft, curl beside Captain Crumb, and watch the light fade to blue. You think of the messages, of all the hands that tied them, of the people who never knew if anyone was listening and wrote anyway. You think of all the echoes you'll never hear and all the silences that meant something. And then just as you're slipping towards sleep, the bell shifts. A single creak. Not enough to ring, just enough to remind you it's still there, still waiting, still listening. You wake to rain. Not a storm, just a steady patter, soft as fingertips on parchment. It drums gently against the wooden beams, seeps into the corners of the window, gathers into droplets that race each other down the stone. Captain Crumb watches them, like a scholar, tracking each path with reverent attention. You light the candle before you rise. The flame flickers in the draught, but holds. Today feels slower somehow, not tired, just deliberate, like the sky wants you to notice things. Downstairs, the chamber is cool. The rope is damp, darkened slightly with moisture drawn down from the bell. You wipe it gently with a cloth, not to change it, just to acknowledge it. You pause before the messages. They hang still, their colours dulled, but their words intact. One thread has loosened. You retie it. The cloth is soft from age and exposure, and for a moment it feels like fabric from a sleeve, a worn tunic, a memory someone used to wear. You think about the people who once rang before you. Some names are in the notebook, others aren't, but the bell remembers them surely in the way a path remembers every footfall, whether or not the footprints remain. You open the notebook. Write rain today. The bell sighs in the cold, but it does not complain. Then you do something you haven't yet done. You draw the bell, not a sketch, a full, careful drawing, with shading and lines and the tiny chip near the lip that only you ever seem to notice. You include the rope, the beams, even the window, and then around the edge you write names. Not yours, theirs. Every keeper whose name you know, every hand that held this rope, every voice that shaped the silence between rings. You write their names like offerings. When you finish, you close the book and hold it to your chest. Then you ring. Just once. No occasion, no announcement. A single note rounded by the rain, blurred by weather, yet still firm. Still present. It echoes out over the rooftops, skipping puddles, brushing chimney smoke. Somewhere a dog barks in answer. You smile. You descend into the village, not with purpose, just to walk. The stones are slick but familiar beneath your boots. The market square is quieter than usual. Baskets half covered with cloths, vendors hunched and sipping from steaming cups. You wave to the baker. He lifts a ladle in greeting. You pause beneath the chapel eaves and let the rain gather in the folds of your cloak. You look up at the bell tower. From this angle it seems taller, not in height but in memory. You wonder how many have stood here and looked up. You return to the tower in time for dusk. The light turns gold, then grey, then lavender. The rope hangs still again. You write one final message for the day. I'll remember. Then you tie it not to the rope, but to the little clay saint, around his neck like a medal. He still leans to the left, but now he seems amused. You sit with him for a while and say nothing, because some silences are the kind you must not fill. The bell doesn't ring today, and somehow that feels right. You open your eyes to the soft hush of morning. The rain has passed, leaving the world rinsed and shimmering. Sunlight falls through the window in honey-colored lines. You lie still for a moment, watching dust float like slow confetti. Captain Crumb curls beside your ribs, purring in his sleep, or maybe just dreaming of cheese. You smile. You rise with care. Not because your joints complain, but because something in the morning asks for gentleness. Down in the chamber, the rope looks lighter, not in weight, in presence. You sit on the bench. The messages sway faintly in the sunbeams. I heard it too. I believe you. Thank you. You don't add a new one. Not today. Today you untie the first one you ever wrote, the scrap that read, "I am listening." You smooth it flat, trace the ink with your thumb, then fold it and place it in the floorboard archive. You add no note, no flourish, just the cloth tucked among the others, part of the story now. You glance at the bell above. Its shadow falls across the bench like a protective wing. You think of the boy with the flour-dusted cheeks, of the girl who smiled, of the priest's quiet nod, of the saint with no face and the fox who broke into the chapel. You think of the tolls you rang with trembling hands and the ones you rang with pride. You think of the days the bell stood silent. You write one final entry in the notebook. This tower knows how to keep its stories. I have left mine here, woven into the rope and into the echoes. To the next keeper, be patient. Listen more than you speak. And remember, a quiet bell is not an empty one. You sketch a small bell surrounded by messages like petals, then close the book. You stand and stretch. The air smells of rope wax and hyssop. You look around one last time. Then slowly, you walk to the rope and place your hand on it. You do not pull. You simply rest your palm there the way one rests a hand on a shoulder before parting ways. And in the quiet you say, "Good night." Time folds here. Not in grand gestures or sudden leaps, but in the soft layering of days one atop another, like blankets in winter. In the bell tower, hours settle instead of slipping past. They collect in corners, soak into stone hum in the fibers of the rope. You do not leave with ceremony. You do not turn back. There is no great toll to announce your departure, no crowd in the square, no final tolling echo. Only stillness, and in that stillness presence. You walk slowly, cloak heavy with memory boots soft against the path. The bell fades behind you, not in sound, but in shape. Yet you feel it always in your shoulder, in your step, in the way you measure quiet now. Because that's what the tower gave you. Not just a story, but a rhythm. A reminder that silence is never empty. That stillness is not absence. That listening is its own kind of ringing. Somewhere far behind the rope may sway again. Someone will write their message. Someone will hear yours. And the bell will breathe once more. Until then, you carry its echo. In the hush of dawn, in the space between thoughts, in the warmth of old cloth. So now, gentle traveller, let the hush settle deeper. Let the world soften, blur, and drift. You've walked the tower steps. You've touched the rope. And you've learned to hear the quiet. Sleep now. The bell will keep watch.